Hello, everybody, and welcome to the South Florida Power BI user group. My name is Adriano, and I am your host for today. Before we get started, please follow the code of conduct and be kind to all those participating here, whether it is through the live chat, be proper there, and to use the live chat. All you have to do is subscribe, and the live chat will be available for you to enter your questions. As well as a starting point, please take a minute and let us know where are you located at. We get presenters and the audience for all over the world. So remember, got a question? Subscribe, like, use the live chat to enter your question as you're watching us now live in real stream. If you are watching the presentation after it has completed the live session, all you have to do is to enter your question in the comment section below, and we'll follow up here with the presenter about that. Another quick thing I would like to bring to your attention is take a minute to check out Power BI Fest. It will be happening on November 20th, and we are trying to make it here a 24-hour Power BI event for the community here. It is free for you to sign up and join and participate. So do not miss this opportunity. Come over, powerbifest.com. I will enter details in the comment section below, as well as in the description, so you all can come join and help me convince you, Ryan, to come in participate.
Yeah, I will definitely do that. I will.
All right. Uh, so as a matter of fact, so I think we have all covered. Without further ado, we have Ryan Wade. How are you doing, Ryan?
Pretty good, man. How you doing?
All right. I was just saying here before I bring you in to about submitting a session to the Power BI Fest.
Yes, yeah, I definitely do that. I didn't find out about it until the discussion we had before this event started. So I'm definitely excited about it. I'm definitely excited about attending the event, not only as a presenter, hopefully, if my session is picked, but also as an attendee. And I will do my best to spread the word around to others.
I appreciate that, man. Definitely. And today here, folks, Ryan will be talking about how to get the most out of the R and Python integration in Power BI. So,
Yes, is that?
all right. So let's take a step back here real quick. And one thing I'd like to ask from everyone watching on YouTube right now, please take a minute, use the live chat, let us know where are you located at.
Yeah.
All right, folks. We
Yeah.
want to see, it's very interesting to see what is the reach here that people from all over the world are coming in from. We're talking about Europe,
Hmm.
Africa, Asia, US, South America,
Hmm.
Caribbean, as well as Central
Hmm.
America. And if you are in Antarctica, let us know. All right. Yeah, on the Power BI Fest, I mentioned we have all continents right now represented except
All continents?
Antarctica. Yeah, we have
Okay, well.
six except
Well, okay.
Antarctica.
Well, maybe if my talk gets accepted, I will try my best to present from Antarctica. If I can, find a place that has good internet connection out there and find a reasonably priced airline ticket to Antarctica, maybe I'll try to present from there if my talk gets accepted.
All right, that's cool, man. So, by the way, where are you located at, Ryan?
Indiana. Are there anybody in the chat from Indiana right now?
All right,
Or
folks,
I'm the only one?
if you are in Indiana, let us know.
Yeah.
All right.
More specifically, I'm originally from a city in Indiana called Michigan City, Indiana. It's like right north. It's on the northwestern part of Indiana, near the Chicago area, not too far from Gary, Indiana. And the reason why I say Gary, Indiana, is one of the most famous singers that ever lived, Michael Jackson. That's his original hometown.
All right, folks. So let us know here in the chat where are you located at, and we want to hear from you. In the meantime, uh, tell us about your role and how you got there to your current role.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna give you the quick elevator pitch of how I got to where I'm at right now. It started back in, I would say, college. I as an undergrad major in economics, and I took significant coursework in finance and math, and that pretty much prepared me for a career as a data analyst. And got into corporate America as a data analyst, and quickly I've ran into situations where I was having to go to IT to get information from the database and do other technical things. And at that point, that's when I decided to teach myself how to program and teach myself the necessary skills that I needed in order to not have to depend on IT. And I eventually came to the role that I'm at now. And that's a solution architect for a consulting firm called Core BTS.
All right, congratulations there. And it's very interesting to see that you came from the business side, if I may point out, right?
Yes. Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and that gives me empathy. I think a lot of times people who come from the IT side don't really understand what the business need and don't really understand their pain points and what have you. And with me coming to my position now from the business side, I have empathy for the people who are requesting data, who are trying to use the enterprise data sources to do their analysis. I have empathy for them, and I can with that empathy, I can help deliver solutions that will give them what they need in order to be able to make the type of decisions that they're required to make.
Awesome. Yes, absolutely. Uh, quite an experience there, and it's very interesting too, as you said, coming from the business side, bringing a different perspective and
Yes.
empathy there,
Mm-hmm.
And so let's take a quick look here. And I know, folks, we'll be starting in just a minute. Also, let us know if you can see us well, if you can hear us well. And remember, if you have any questions, use the live chat. All right. So let's take a quick look where people at. Hey, I have a neighbor here. We got Roshan, and pardon me all if I'm mispronouncing a name here or there. Please be kind here.
Okay.
All right.
And you said neighbor. You talking about your neighbor or my neighbor?
My neighbor. So,
okay. Do I have any neighbors in the chat?
I'm getting down. Let's take a look here.
Okay.
I got Roshan from South Florida.
Okay, that's
Yeah, and we have Sheila Hart from Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay, I lived there. I lived in DFW for a quick second. Okay.
Oh, there we go, a former neighbor there.
Yeah, a former neighbor. Yeah. It's hard to say. I think I remember her. Saw her at Walmart one time. I'm being totally funny.
So we have here Brent from Eden Prairie, MN, Minnesota.
Minnesota. Okay. Okay, so the United States,
Yes,
we're representing
the U.S.
all
Yes,
over.
yeah, we got a few people representing, right? So we have Sheila, Brent, we have Bharat in Jersey,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I will say this last one that's funny, but I will skip one here. I'm gonna say Antonio from Dublin, Ireland. Welcome, Antonio, and
Oh,
everybody
wow.
there.
Okay.
And we
Okay.
have KS from Portland, U.S. again.
Portland. Okay, yeah. So we went all the way. We got both coasts. We got the East Coast with New Jersey, and then we got the West Coast with Portland, Oregon. That's a good thing.
Indeed. And now jumping all the way to Melbourne, Australia with
Oh, down under. Okay,
yeah.
that's a place that's on my bucket list. I hear a lot of great things about that area.
Indeed, yeah. Well, thank you, Roshan, for letting us know you can hear us well and see us well. And we also have Cyber Wilson. He wants us to level up in terms of location because he says he's on the IS International Space Station. How about
Oh, okay.
that? All
Okay, so
right.
he's out. No, okay. I think okay. Well, I'm gonna ask him how the internet connection is. Maybe I'll try to present from there.
Yeah. There's too much lag.
Okay. Oh, there. Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah. Okay. Well, I need to scratch that off, and I may go out somewhere and see one in the ocean and try to present from there, so I can be different than everybody else. Yeah.
That's very cool. All right, folks. We have a great introduction here. We have Ryan Wade, and so tell us a bit about the presentation here, Ryan.
hmm Yeah, so with this presentation, there for a while now, I want to say dating back to 2016 or 2017, I forget the exact time period, with Power BI, R was added to the mix. And then shortly after that, Python was added. And, you see in the transformation session of Power Query, this R and this PY symbol, and then you see in get data, you see the ability to use an R script or a Python script, and then you see for the visuals, the ability to use the R and Python visual. And to many people who are not familiar with the R programming language or with the Python programming language, they see those things and like, okay, I see that, but what is it any good? Is it just something that Microsoft is Microsoft is adding to Power BI just to say they got this feature, but it's useless? And I think that because many aspects of it is not really straightforward, a lot of people are not getting the full benefit out of out of Power BI without using that capability. I think there are a lot of things that are relatively easy, and I say relatively easy because without R Python, they would be much harder to do. And my goal is to do two things. One, with this presentation, is just to get you over the setup and get you introduced to some best practices, because unlike other external tools, using R and Python in many instances is not straightforward as using that studio or the tablet editor. Those things pretty much work out of the box, and you don't really have to do too much to make those type of tools work. So I want to introduce you to those type of things, and also I want my pain to be your gain. I gritted my way through the use of R and Python and Power BI, and I hit a lot of roadblocks that I was able to overcome. And I want to share those with you so that when you begin your journey of using R and Python and Power BI, you have a good framework to start from. That's what the goal is in this talk. And I'll be doing a follow-up talk that I want to share with Adriano, and that talk is going to do a deeper dive. Like today, I'm going to show you how to do things in a basic way and how to get your environment set up. Then in the future talk I'm going to do with another user group, and it's across the pond. It's a Power BI group in UK. And within that talk, I'm going to do a deeper dive and show you some very good use cases that makes a compelling argument of why you should use R and Python or leverage that capability in Power BI.
So there, folks, great opportunity. Now you have a combo right here. So you're going to watch this. And when is the one in the UK? I believe it's like in a couple weeks or so?
Yes, so November 11th. Yep.
All right.
November 11th.
So, folks, jump in here, check it out. You have 2 weeks. And if you do not see it, the following one, come back still, watch this one. I believe the recording will be made available after the presentation for the next time. So,
yes.
Right? So you still can enjoy and become more exposed to how best to use the tool, the best practices. I believe you cover some setting up today as well. And then you have some use cases there for you all to go check on the UK portion as well. So, and if you're all still hungry, I know that Ryan didn't mention, but I believe you have a book.
Yes, I'll go with that in a slide deck. Yeah.
All right, folks. All right, so without further ado, it's all you, Ryan.
Okay, so let me share my screen. Quick second to do that. And I'm sharing right now. Let me know when you can see.
I can see here, and folks, I believe you'll be able to see it in just a minute, just a few seconds.
Hello, can you see the screen? Okay. All right, perfect. Okay. So let's go over this presentation real quick. And I'm gonna start off with a brief introduction before I get into the slide deck. Say that again. Okay.
Also, folks, if you're watching us, let us know if you can see well there the screen. Just drop a message on the live chat. Thank you.
Okay, everything's good? Okay. All right, perfect. Okay, so the title of this presentation is Getting the Most Out of R and Python and Power BI. Before we get into the presentation, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I have a lot of passion about this particular topic, so much passion that I decided to write a book about it. And this book was published last year by A Press. The title of it, Advanced Analytics and Power BI with R and Python. Um, this book covers a lot of the things that we're going to go over today, and then it gives you a lot of advanced use cases that shows why this integration is worth investigating. In addition to being a published author, I'm also a Microsoft MVP. I was recently awarded that early part of the year, and I work for as a consultant for a company, Core BTS. They're a consulting firm that is different in some in that they don't specialize in just one area of the Microsoft data platform, but they cover the whole range of possible things you can do in a Microsoft data platform. Everything from Office 365 administration to data analytics to advanced AI and machine learning. So they cover the whole gamut of things you can do in the Microsoft data platform. So we touched on this a little bit earlier, but coming to this particular session, you're probably asking yourself the question, why should I even be concerned about the R and Python integration of Power BI? I mean, heck, we already have a lot of things that you need to that you can do in Power BI natively. Well, one of the things that will make you interested in this particular integration is that using R and Python, it will enable you to score data. And I apologize for this slide, it's not completed, but what I meant to say was it enables you to score data using those programming languages. And when I say score data, you can you can score your data or apply a machine learning algorithm to your data that you're bringing into the Power BI data model based off of some machine learning algorithm. And that can do things that can enhance your dimension tables or your fact tables that you're bringing into the Power BI data model. Let's talk about a quick example. Say you are a store that sell bicycles, and you're looking at your customer base, and you're trying to predict which one of your customers that's located in the dim customer table, which one of those customers are likely to buy a bike within the next year. So you can develop a nice data science algorithm using R or Python and score your data using your data in your dimension table for customers, and then add a calculated column to that particular data set that will let you know if that person is a potential bike buyer or not. And then now that you have that calculated column and you're added as an attribute to your dimension table, you can report on it using all the functionality that you have in Power BI, using DAX and all the other features that you have in that area. Another reason why you should look into the R and Python integration of Power BI is the advanced data transformations that you can do that are not possible just using Power Query. Now, I would say Power Query does a very good job. 80% of the situations, and maybe 85% of the situations that you need to do in terms of transforming your data when you're bringing it to the Power BI data platform, can be done using the Power Query interface. Microsoft did a very good job, and in a no-code fashion, you can do a lot of from simple to complex data transformation, this using the Power Query editor, or if you want to call it a get data editor within Power BI. But then, there'll be in the other 10% where it may be too difficult. You may be able to go and write some custom M code to do the other 10%. But then when you get, so that probably take you up to like 90, 95% of the type of transformations that you need to do. But then, and when you get to that 5% or that 10%, in those instances, R or Python may be a better option for you. M has been around since, with Power Query, been around what, since 2015, 2016, somewhere around there. Both Python and R has been around since the 1990s. So a lot of the tasks that are just now being done in Power Query have been done in R and Python for a very long time. For instance, R is a domain-specific programming language written by statisticians for statisticians. And just like any other data analyst, one of the main things they need to do is clean up their data before they do their analysis. And with that being said, there are a lot of built-in packages, or there are a lot of packages available for the R programming language that make doing those type of tasks relatively easy to do. And started around 2010, Python has become a major player in data analytics and in the data science community. And with that phenomena occurring, there has been a lot of packages that has been added to the Python ecosystem that is specific to data transformations and ETL or data munging, whatever you want to call it. Those type of activities where you need to apply some type of transformation to your data. That has been a feature that Python has been able to do well before Power Query was even invented. The last thing, not the last thing, but another feature is, and it's kind of similar to the second bullet point, but you may have a situation where you need to do some type of advanced string manipulation. Now, Power Query has a lot of good built-in string manipulation functions, but there are some advanced situations that you may need to leverage R Python for. Going back to what I said earlier, probably up to 90% of the use cases, could be handled with one of the built-in string functions in Power Query. But when you get to that 10% where you need to do some type of advanced string manipulation, that's when R Python may be a better choice. One of the things that, in addition to having many more functions available to you, string manipulating functions available to you in R and even Python, in addition to that, one of the biggest reasons why I like using R Python for string manipulation is in both of those languages, you are able to use regular expressions. And regular expressions enable you to do advanced pattern matching that's not possible in Power Query using one of the functions they have available in the M programming language. Being able to leverage regular expressions using R or Python gives you the ability to do some string manipulations that you wouldn't be able to do, or it would be either super hard to do or maybe impossible to do using a native functionality that's built into Power BI. And we all came to Power BI because of data visualization. Power BI has a great engine that leverages the DAX programming languages and enables you to incorporate business logic that is pretty amazing. But one of the biggest selling points about Power BI is the data visualization aspect of it. And one of the things that the R and Python integration enables you to do is it enables you to use those languages to create some custom visualizations that'd be hard to create if you didn't have those as an option. Now, I'm very opinionated on this particular topic, so much so that when I get to this point and I'm trying to make a decision of whether to use R or Python, I just stay with one choice, and that's R. I think that R is by far a better programming language to use, specifically because it has a package called ggplot And I'll go more into that in the second talk that I'll do. But that particular package makes creating custom visualization a breeze, a snap compared to the other options you have in R or even in Python. ggplot2, the GG in ggplot stands for grammar of graphics. So the way you write the code to build out your visualization is very intuitive. So if just reading it, a person with that do not have a background in that particular programming language, they can look at the code and kind of get a sense of what's going on, because the syntax that's used when you're creating a custom visualization using the ggplot2 package is very intuitive. So that's another feature. And we'll go over some simple examples of this today just to show you how things are done. But again, we'll go over some more compelling use cases when we have the second talk with our sister Power BI group that's over in the UK, and that talk will occur sometime in November. So with that being said, let's go over the agenda of today's talk. What we're going to talk about first is setting up our environment for Python. And one of the things that you're going to notice when you go through your setup is that things are a little harder when it comes to using Python and Power BI than they are for R. The environment setup and then just setting things up in Power BI is a little bit more difficult for Python than it is for R. But we'll go over how to set up, what packages are available. We go over the recommended distribution, and this comes with a caveat. Because my recommended distribution is different than what Microsoft recommends. And the reason why my recommendation is different is because the environment that I choose to work in is, I choose to work in a virtual machine called the Azure Data Science Virtual Machine. And I'm going to give you reasons why I highly recommend that later on in the talk. But I'm able to do things and be able to easily overcome problems in that particular environment that I can't overcome when I'm using my own machine. So my distribution is a little different than the recommended distribution that Microsoft recommends. So we'll talk about that more. And then we also will talk about tools that you can administer Python with, how to start packages, and then we'll go over to the R setup. We'll talk about some of the same topics, but from an R standpoint. And then after we go over how to set up our R and Python environments in our local machine, whether you're using the VM like I recommend, and again, that VM is the Data Science Virtual Machine. It's a resource available in Azure. I highly recommend it, and I will go over reasons why in the future, part of this talk. But we will talk about how you need to set up your environment for Python and Power BI. Inside of Power BI, we'll do the same thing for R. And then after that, we get into the live demos. So let's start off with going over the available packages in in Python in the Power BI service. And these packages that I'm showing you right now, when I say the Python packages that are available in the Power BI service, there are two things you need to consider. There are, or two things you can do with Python. You can use Python during the data ingestion process. And that's when you're using get data to use a Python script to bring in data into the Power BI data model, or you're using a Python step in the transform session of Power Query. That's part of the get data process. So when you're using Python in that manner, you can use any version of Python and any package you want to use on your particular desktop or in your environment when you're doing your data wrangling to get the data in the shape that you need it to be in prior to bringing it into the Power BI data model. What I'm talking about right here is the situation where what's available to you in the actual service. So when you are creating a Python visual, you need to make sure that your visual is using one of these packages. And you'll see that the version of the packages that's being used in the service as of yesterday's date, I'm assuming it hasn't changed in one day, but these are the versions of the packages that you can use in a Python visual. So those are the packages that's available in the service and the version of those packages. Now, the version will come into play if you're using a relatively new functionality of that particular package. So if you're using a relatively new functionality of a particular package and during the development process, you need to make sure, you need to verify that that particular feature is available in the package that's being used in the service when you're creating a custom visualization. The recommended distribution that I recommend is the Anaconda distribution. And Python, unlike R, is a general purpose programming language, so it's used for more things than just data science. You have Django and other frameworks is used for web development. You can use Python to develop video games. You can use Python to develop applications. You can use Python for many more things than just data science or data analytics. And given that, I like to use the Anaconda distribution of Python because this is data science or data analytics focus. It's a distribution that comes with tools that will make doing data science much easier. So with that, in addition to a distribution of Python you get, and right now the current version will be based on Python 3.8, but you also get Conda included with it, and Conda, makes installing packages much easier, and the way it compile packages is can make the packages more performant than what they would be if you was using this regular traditional Python. And then it comes with all kinds of other tools in the download. You get one of the tools that I'm in love with, and that's a Jupyter Notebook or Jupyter Lab. That comes already installed with Python. You get with the Anaconda distribution. You get VS Code included with it, which is the recommended IDE when you're doing data science with Python, especially if you're doing it from the Microsoft data platform. So you get a lot of tools available with you with this download. That's why I recommend this distribution. But again, like I said earlier, you can run into problems with it. The problems that I ran into with the Anaconda distribution if I was to use my personal machine, they don't occur, but they don't happen when I'm using Anaconda on a data science virtual machine. So again, I always do my development in a data science virtual machine, so I never run into those issues. In addition to that, you have an Anaconda prompt, and you'll find that administrating Python is not as straightforward as R. Certain things you need to do from the command line when you're doing things in Python. There's other things that you can do from the IDE. And so with that being said, one of the options that you have available to you is the Anaconda prompt. That's the one I recommend. That's the one I like to use. But again, if you are not using a data science virtual machine, you may have to rely on the command prompt that comes installed with Windows. In addition to that, you have VS Code. This is by far the recommended IDE to use for Python and many other languages for that matter when you're doing data analytics using the Python programming language. And again, with the Anaconda distribution, this comes pre-installed. If you were to use the traditional distribution of Python, you had to do this as a separate install. And then down here, you can also, you notice that you can get to the terminal from VS Code. You don't need to do if you need to do something like install a package in Python. Instead of having to go to that command prompt that I showed you earlier, the Conda command prompt, you're able to go to the terminal inside of VS Code to interact with Python from that location if you need to do something like install a package or change your environment. So with the terminal, if you have different options of the type of terminal that you can use, and you'll see over on the right, you got the command prompt, or I think you do a lot in PowerShell. I never use PowerShell, but I typically use the command prompt to do my administration with the Python programming language. And that's like I said, if I need to do something like change my environment, and you'll learn more about what environments are later on in the talk, or if I need to do something like install a package inside that environment. Now let's go over creating an environment. And before I do that, let me tell you what environment is. Now, if you recall earlier in the slide that I showed you earlier, where I showed you the 8 different packages that are available to you in the service for Python and the Power BI service, the version of Python that the Power BI service is using is Python 3.7.7. And you recall earlier when I showed you the Anaconda download, that was based off of Python 3.8. So with a kind of environment where you're able to create an environment, and in that environment you can have whatever version of Python that you want to use, and then the packages that you need for that given environment. So what I like to do is when I'm doing anything with, like, say for Power BI or a specific project, I would like to create an environment for that particular project. And then once I create that environment, I will make sure that I'm using the version of Python that I want to use. And then I will download whatever packages I need to download in that environment. So, one of the things that you normally run into, a lot of times you may have packages that may conflict with each other if you're trying to use a general environment for everything. But if you have an environment that is specific to your given need, and in this case, it's for Power BI, you can have in that environment only the packages that you need and the version of Python that you need for that given situation. So the creative Python environment, you see, is pretty self-explanatory. And I hope you can see it. If you can't see this very well on your end, let me know, Adriano. But you see, like, the code that you need to create an environment. You will open up the Conda prompt that I mentioned earlier, and you just type Conda create and then a -n. Now, do I hear you, Adriano, trying to interject? Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. So to create a environment is very straightforward. You open up the Conda command prompt that we talked about earlier in one of the earlier slides. You type in the word Conda create, and then -n, and that -n, that N stands for a name, and that's the name that you want to give your environment. And in our situation, I want to name the environment PBI for Power BI. And then you can tell it what version of Python you want to include in that particular environment. Once you do that, you'll get the message that we see below, and it will tell you what it's getting ready to do and if you want to proceed or not. You type yes, and then that will create the environment that you need. After you do that, you need to activate that environment. You need to activate it in order to install whatever packages that you want to include in that particular environment. And that's very easy to activate that environment. Only thing you need to do is type the command conda activate and then the name of the environment that you want to activate. In this case, we want to activate the PBI environment. So you type conda activate PBI and the environment will be activated. And the reason why I'm choosing to do this via slides versus live, a lot of things go wrong when you do live code. And I want to just minimize that for this particular part so I can focus on the conceptual pieces of, why I think what I'm presenting is important from an environmental standpoint. And after you type that command, kind of activate PBI, one of the things you notice is that in your command prompt, the active location is being the location that's active will be prefaced with a PBI. That lets you know that the environment you're in, this right here lets you know the environment that you're working in. It went from being base earlier to now it's PBI. And so now that you're in this environment, you may need to install a package. And one of the packages that is super important when you're doing anything, from data analysis and data visualization and Python is a package called Pandas. And if you recall earlier, the version of Pandas that's available in the Power BI service currently is version 1.0.1. And to install that specific specific package, you just do install Pandas, conda install, and then the name of the package that you want to install, which is Pandas, and then the equal sign and the version number that you want to install. Once you do that, you see a list of things that Conda would do if you were to go forward with installing the packages. It tells you what will be downloaded and what new packages will be installed. And one of the things that you'll see that will be installed is the NumPy package. And the NumPy package is one of the other packages that's available in the service. One of the things that I find confusing, and if you all know somebody at Microsoft, you can ask them why this is, but the version is using 1.2.1.2. But I mean, this would be that's what the Pandas 1.0.1, that's the version of NumPy that it depends on, because Pandas is built on top of NumPy. But in the service, they use 1.9 something. And I'm kind of confused about that. Pandas requires this version, but the service is using a lower version. I'm kind of confused about that. But I guess one of us can find out from Microsoft why that's the case. So with that being said, if you were to use NumPy, because it's going to get installed when we download Pandas, we got to make sure that whatever feature you're using in NumPy is available in the version that's being used in the service. This is one of the things you need to make sure you consider. And another thing that you need to consider is that when you're using Conda to download a package, the way things are set up and Anaconda is that they have these channels out on the internet that stores all these packages that you call when you're doing when you're installing a package using Conda. So it goes out to the internet, finds it, and then downloads it on your computer and then installs it. And Conda, I found some instances, and one of those instances is in this case where the server says that it's using for scikit-learn is using version 0.23.0. And you'll see that if we're doing a Conda install, that version is not available with Conda. So we can't use that version. If you try to do an install, you'll get an error message saying that it can't find that particular version of scikit-learn in the channels that it searches when it's trying to find it. So you need to make a decision. Do I use 0.221 in my development, or do I use 0.23.1 in my development? And when you do that, if you decide to use a more recent version, you need to make sure that whatever you're doing works in the version that's in the service. So, well, I guess this is going to be a good time just to stop for, any questions. Are there any questions that came up in the chat? Adriano, during the, okay. All right, perfect. Okay, perfect. So that's how you install, that's how you search to see if what you're trying to install, what's actually available, what version of the package that you're trying to search for, if it's available. And that command that you give it is Conda search and then -F, and then you give it the name of the package that you're trying to see what versions are available for download, and it'll give you a very long list or a short list of all the packages that's available, or all the versions of that particular package that's available for download. There's a lot of stuff to remember if you try to commit it to memory when you're working with the Conda prompt. One of the things that I like to do is just have a cheat sheet available to me, and you can go to this URL to find the a nice cheat sheet that's that will give you some code snippets that you can use when you're working with the Conda prompt. Now, this is important. If you are looking to do some serious data science, machine learning, or data analytics using Python in a Microsoft ecosystem, you're going to be using Conda. And knowing these different these code snippets and how to use them to get certain information would be invaluable to you. So I highly recommend that you get familiar with it or know about this as a resource so that you will have access to some of the most commonly used commands that are used in Conda. Now that's the Python side of things. Now let's talk about the setup that you need to do on the Python side. On the R side. So on the R side, you see that R is much better supported in Power BI than Python. I know right now Python is the sexy language right now. Everybody wants to say I'm coding and I'm coding in Python. You're the cool kid in school if you can say I know how to code in Python now. And so with that being said, when it comes to Power BI, people want to immediately jump to Python. And in some instances with Python, like if I'm using Azure Machine Learning Services, Python may be the better language to go with. If I'm using Databricks, Python over R may be the better language to go with. But in Power BI, and this is an opinionated opinion. Is that a good opinionated opinion? That's kind of redundant. But in my opinionated opinion, I think if you had a gun to my head and you said, Ryan, you got to pick a language between R and Python for Power BI, I would go for Power BI. I'll go with R. And then just like, let's look at the number of packages with R and Power BI. You have, not 8 packages, but 934 packages that's available to you that you can leverage when you're doing R visuals in the service. So there's a much better integration from that standpoint. And then, with the nature of Power BI, that complements what you do in R already. Both of them are, from like for instance, if you go with the data munging or the data wrangling that you need to do in Power Query, people have been doing that in R much longer and well before we've been doing it using Power Query. If you're talking about data viz, they've been doing that in R way longer, way before we've been doing that in Power BI. That's been an important aspect on their side of things before it became popular in R. So with that being, before it became popular in Power BI, or even before Power BI was even thought of. So with that being said, I think R is a better complement if you had to pick one of the two. But as I said in my book, there are some instances where Python outshines outshines R and Power BI. And those are situations where you're dealing with some sort of API. Like in my book, I gave an example of not only just working with cognitive services, Microsoft Cognitive Services, but also other providers out there. I show how you can use IBM's natural language natural language understanding. I think that's the name of it. But I show how you can interact with their API, which is like their version of cognitive services, and they have some features from in terms of NLP that's not available in cognitive services. So with Python, you had the option of using those, and R, that type of functionality is not really built up. So the recommended distribution, this comes with a caveat because I need to talk to some people in Microsoft because things have changed. Used to be the recommended distribution was Microsoft R Open, and that came from the distribution before Microsoft acquired it, Revolution Analytics. And this is like a version of R that takes the version of base R that exists in Crane, and then add some enhancements to it. Now, the latest version is out right now. I forget which version it is, 4.0.2, I believe it is. And that version is the last version that Microsoft is going to support. And in the service right now, they're using the version of MRO they're using in the service right now is 3.4.4. And they're saying they're going to stop supporting that. They're going to go to using base R again. So right now, I recommend MRO, Microsoft R Open, because this again, it's R with some added on functionality. Just like with Conda, it compiles packages in a way to where certain packages perform better in Conda than they do if you were to use a native version of that particular package. It's the same thing with MRO. They have these math libraries, and they got some other functionality that's built into MRO that makes using R in this with this distribution much more performant than you will have with base R. So right now, this is my recommendation, but it may change in the future. And again, the version of R that's being used in the service right now is 3.44, not the latest version. Microsoft 10 or last when it comes to the version of Python and R that they're using in the service. The recommended IDE by far is RStudio. When I first started my journey back in 2012, 2013, Microsoft had a tool called R Tools for Visual Studio. And at the time, it was going to be the competitor for R IDE, and I thought it would have been better if you use an R within the Microsoft Data Platform. But Microsoft since scratched that. IDE, and they've been using RStudio. And pretty much anybody that's doing serious data science, they're using RStudio as their preferred IDE. Now, you can use VS Code. You can use R and VS Code, and there's other IDEs that you can use. But I think the best one to do your R development is in this particular IDE, RStudio. Now, installing packages in R is much more straightforward than it is in Python. In your script, you don't need to go to a command line to install your packages. You can do it within your script, or you can do it in your what they call interactive window, or in your console. You can just type in install that packages. That's the name of the function, and then you need to enclose the package name in either double or single quotes, and it will install that package. If you need to install multiple packages, you can create what they call a character vector, install multiple packages. But that's a more advanced way of installing packages, and that's, like I said, if you want to do multiple packages. But if, like I said, if you just need to do a single package, simple, super easy to do using the syntax that we see right here. And one of the things that I like about the MRO, it comes with this what they call a checkpoint. And what the checkpoint library allows you to do, and you will see the benefit of this when you start doing your development, is that if you recall the version of R, that 3.4.4, that was developed back in April of 2018, I want to say it was. With this checkpoint library, what it enables you to do without saying, oh, I need to install the version that was active at that point in time, instead of having to know what version was active of a given package at that particular point in time, you can just install this checkpoint library package, and then call that package using the library function, and then set your checkpoint to the date that you wanted to set, and the date that you want to use. And in doing so, when you install packages after that point, it will install the most recent version of that package as of the date that you pass to the checkpoint. That makes reproducibility much better. So if I was to develop an R script and then pass it over to Adriano, he can use this, and we can make sure that we're both using the same version of the package by using this checkpoint package. Now let's talk about, before we get into some of the code examples, let's talk about the setting up Python and R inside of Power BI. Pretty straightforward. If you install Anaconda using a data science virtual machine, or if you install R on Python on your desktop, it will, in most cases, locate the distribution that's active on your machine, through environment paths. It should find that easily. One thing that I recommend, especially using on your on desktop, and you're not using Conda and you're not using environments, I would recommend even though you can install multiple versions of Python on your machine, I will only install one, because things can get real messy. And then you can create all kinds of dependencies and all kinds of conflicts in your machine that can just mess things up. And then you'll need to, uninstall, and it creates just a messy situation. And that's the reason why I don't use my machine. On my machine, I don't use it to host a distribution of Python or R. Typically, I just have my RStudio or my VS Code IDE on my machine. I'll use that to connect to a some location in Azure, or I use a data science virtual machine, because I ran into situations in the past when I was trying to set up Python, because like I said, it's not as straightforward as they make it out to be on some of the tutorials that you may see on YouTube. You'll find a lot of people that will get into a situation where they corrupted their environment and they don't know why they corrupted it. I don't know if my video is showing now, but I used to have a big afro. I used to have a big afro that was like out to here. When I'm saying right now, on both sides of my head, I am like, I have my hands. Okay. Oh, the camera is not showing? Okay. Okay, let me display that. Yeah, because I was so I can show you all what I'm talking about. I thought, well, it's showing on my end, so we can just forget about it. It's showing that it's displaying. But anyway, I used to have a big afro, and because of all the issues I ran into with Python and what have you, I had to pull all my hair out, and that's why I'm bald. I think Adriano may have had the same issue with some of the stuff that we're both bald due to stress that we ran into at the workplace with trying to configure environments and all that. And that's the type of situation I ran into with Python. But when I use the data science virtual machine, if I mess that up, I can just scrap it and then spin up a new one and start anew. So that's why I recommend that highly. And I can use on the data science virtual machine, I can use Conda as my distribution. But again, that's not recommended if you're using your own machine. And then if you're using an environment, you need to browse to the location where your environment is stored in. And with Conda, all your environments all of them are stored in the Anaconda folder, and it's stored in a folder named ENVS, and that ENVS stands for environments. And once you install VS Code, it will automatically be detected. If it's not, you'll need to select it down here. And then if we go to the next slide, you'll see this, pretty much the same thing with R. The version of R that's being used in the service right now is 3.4.4, and that's the version I choose to use. And then since I downloaded RStudio, it automatically detected that. If it is not detected, you'll need to choose the specific IDE that you want to use. And going back, I want to emphasize that I highly recommend that if you're using your own personal machine, that you only have one version of R on your machine. I know I have one of my fellow presenters, Kevin Fiesel. He has done. Me and him, we got on the R train when it first got introduced to Power BI and the Microsoft ecosystem. I know he's done a lot of great things with R inside of SQL Server. And one of the things that we both ran into early on is that when you install multiple distributions of R, say version 3.4.4 and version 3.4.5, that can confuse Power BI. And you can create a nightmarish type of situation. But if you only have one distribution of it, I think you'll be totally fine. Okay. So now for the live demos, and with these live demos, and this is we're close to the end of the presentation. These are going to be very simple. It's going to show you a couple things. One, how to use R and Python to bring in data into the data model, the basic steps you need to do. And then the second thing that we're going to do is show you how to use R to create custom visualizations. It's going to be very basic, and we're going to do more advanced use cases in the future when we go into when we do the next version of the talk, which is part B, in a couple weeks. So now let's talk about using Python to bring in data into the Power BI data model. We're going to do a very simple example. And in this example, the first thing we need to do is create the script in VS Code. And then once we create that script in VS Code, we need to make sure it's functional. And then we need to paste that script into Power BI. So if we're, to create the script, the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we leverage that environment that we created earlier, that PBI environment that we created in that slide deck. So to do that, the first thing we need to do, we need to activate that particular environment. Right now, you'll see, and I don't know if it's showing totally in the screen, and let me zoom this a little bit so you all can see. So right now, you'll see that the location that we're in is a location that doesn't have the particular files that we need for the task that we're getting ready to do. In Python, they don't have a concept of projects in Python. They have, but you can mimic a project by putting all the assets that you need for that particular project in a root folder, in a designated root folder. So what we're going to do now is we're going to change our directory to the location that has that particular uh, uh, that has the assets that we want for the project that we're working on. And to do that, we type we use the command cd, and C stands for change, and the D stands for directory. So we want to change our directory, and the directory we want to change it to in this instance is this folder that we have for software PBI, where PBI stands for Power BI. We do that, and now you see that our working directory is now the folder that has all the assets that we have. Now what we want to do is we want to activate the environment that we're using for this particular task, and that's the PBI environment. And remember that we want to use that environment because it has all the packages that we need, and also the correct versions of those packages. So to activate that particular environment, we can type the word conda activate and the name of the environment we want to activate, which is PBI. We do that, and after we run, give conda prompt, that command, you'll see that over here on the left, you'll see that the environment has been changed to the PBI environment. Now we're working out of that particular environment. Now what we want to do is we want to open up VS Code from this particular location, and when we do that, it will enable us to have access to all the assets that we need for this given project available to us in VS Code. So to do that, we type the word code standing for VS Code, and then the period. The period says, I want to open up VS Code in the current location. That's what that period is doing. So we press enter, and after a while, and I'm on a slow VM right now, so it may take a little bit for it to open up, you'll see that VS Code is not open up. And let me zoom out of that so you can see. And you'll see that we have it open up to a script that we're going to use for Python. So I should have had this cleared out because I wanted to run through this code with you. But if we close out of here, now we can just keep it open for the purpose of this talk. But what we'll do now is run through this code. So this particular code that we have here, again, this is a very simple example, but it's something that excuse me, Zoom. Okay, yeah. So this is a very simple example, and this example is something simple that you can do in Python that you cannot do in Power BI. And this example, and again, we're going to do more detailed examples in the next talk, but in this example, what we're doing is we're reading in this file, and this file has some names in it, and we're doing some data cleansing. Some of the names are well-formed, and others are not well-formed. Well, with Python, as I said earlier, you can use regular expressions to do pattern matching. And here we have two regular expressions that we want to use. And we want to say that if the name that's passed to the function that we're going to create meets one of the two patterns we have, then show that name. If it doesn't meet that pattern that we have defined in the regular expressions, then return an NA. So let's start off by first this executing the code to the code that we need in order to run the particular script that we're running. Let me control F4 out here and make sure look at the output. Let's see what's going on. Okay, so I believe that if I scroll down, let's see where we're at. Because I ran this code earlier. Yeah, okay, yes, we did. So you'll see, my output is still populated from stuff I did earlier, but you'll see that what happened was we sent the, I need to zoom out if I go down here, you'll see that the code that does the imports was sent to the output to the terminal and ran in the terminal. So we'll see that we now have the pandas package, and the pandas package is the package that you don't use a lot when you're doing data wrangling. It's the top package for data wrangling in data science and Python. And then the RE package, that's the package that we're using for regular expression. And the OS package is a package that you will often use, and that allows you to interact with the operating system. So let's close out of that. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to change our working directory. And right now, you're just like, Ryan, why do we need to change our working directory if we already did that? Well, we want to change it because when we take this code and we copy it into Power BI, we need to tell Power BI what working directory to use, because the working directory that is used in Power BI is different than the working directory in this script. You know, that's a very important concept. If you want to do any type of R and Python development for Power BI, you need to learn about the concept of a working directory. And again, when you take your script and you don't explicitly tell Python what you want your working directory to be, then you can run into some unforeseen problems. We have a question, Adriano? Okay, perfect. Okay, so that's we want to make sure you set your working directory. We didn't have to, and this is important when you're trying to take the script and move it over to Power BI. The second thing we're doing is we're reading in the data into a data frame that we'll call DF, and you'll see that in our folder structure we have. Inside of the South Florida PBI folder, we have a data folder. And inside that data folder, we have a file named dememployee.csv. And that's all we're doing is reading that file into pandas and into a pandas data frame. Notice that because we have a working directory defined, that we don't need to give it the full path when we're reading the data into Python, because it knows to start from our working directory. The next thing we want to do is we want to run the lines of code that defines our regular expression pattern. And when you're running code in VS Code, this is very easy to do. All you need to do is highlight it, and then you hold down the Shift key and press Enter, and then that will send that the code that you have highlighted to the terminal. Next thing we want to do is we want to compile the regular expression that we created or that we define in lines 9, 10, and 11. So we do that, we run that, and then we want to put our function into memory, our custom function. And this custom function will be used to do that pattern matching that I mentioned earlier. So now we have a function that says that we're going to pass this function a value that we're just calling name. And then once we pass that to our function, it does that regular expression check. And again, the book that I have, it describes what's going on in more detail. But pretty much what's happening is that it's using this function to say if the name that's passed to this function meets one of the regular expression patterns that we define in line 9, 10, and 11, then return that name. If it does not meet that pattern, then turn an NA. So now that we have that function in our session, we can use that function to apply it to a given field in our data frame. And that's what's happening in this line of code right here. So then the next thing we do, we can run this right here. And if we zoom out and then go to the output, you'll see down here what that looks like, what the output looks like. So now we know that we have functional code, and we know the code is functional, so we can copy this and go over to Power BI and use it as a Python script in Power BI. So we can go to Power BI, and then as you know, all of the advanced users of Power BI, we know that we can get data in two different ways. We can either go to file, the file command, and get data from there, or we can get to it from the menu bar. So let me zoom out, and then I'm going to go to get data. It's going to take a second for get data to populate. And then you'll see over here, you'll see that we have the get data menu that you all are very familiar with. I can do one or two things at this point. I can go to the other option to get to the Python script, or I can more easily just type the word Python. And what will happen if I learn how to spell Python? Why is it typing I? Okay, type Python and you'll see that, I don't know why it's caps over here. Let me take off my cap locks. But you'll see that this option over here, the Python script editor, is available to us. So I just click on that. And in doing so, the Python script editor will appear. Now, again, you'll see, as you can see, this is not an ideal place for us to do the use for development. We want to take code that's already been vetted and paste it here. So we already vetted our code in VS Code, and we know that works. So we just copy and paste that into the script editor. And again, I emphasize that you must have this particular line of code right here. And let me highlight it real quick. This particular line of code, you need to have this in it. You need to explicitly tell Power BI what's your working directory. If you don't do this, it'll try to use the default working directory in Power BI, and it won't be able to find the file that you want to read in. After you do that, you click OK. And then in doing so, it will go through the process of adding that particular file to the Power BI data model. And it will expose that data frame that was created by that script as a data set that you can bring into Power BI. And the name that will give it is the name that you gave that data frame and in your Python script. Now, at this point, we can do what we do with any data set that's being brought into Power BI. And that is, we can make additional transformations to it, or we can just load it as is. So in this case, I performed all the transformations that I wanted to perform, and we just click OK, and it's going through the process of executing that Python script and loading the results of that Python script into the Power BI data model. Now the data has been loaded, and we can go over to the table tab, and you'll see that once we zoom in, you'll see that there were some records that didn't represent a complete name, and those names were replaced with an NA. Now, I probably should have included the original names so you'll see what names were replaced, but this is just a high-level example. This is a super easy example because you saw the amount of code it took to do this was relatively easy and relatively short. So that's why I just want to show you an example. Now, again, that example was an example where we used Python to cleanse data that we're bringing into Power BI. Some other use cases is on a high level, and we'll go over that in the next talk, is you can use Python or R to mask data that you're bringing into the Power BI data model. So you have a situation where you have a field in your data set that has social security numbers, or it has sensitive information that you don't want to expose. If that sensitive information meets a pattern, you can mask it. You can easily mask social security numbers. You can easily mask telephone numbers using a regular expression. We'll talk about cases like that going forward. But one of the cases I like the most is the ability to apply a data science algorithm to your model that you're bringing in. You can, if you are doing something like I mentioned earlier, where you wanted to predict customers in your customer dimension table that are likely to buy a bicycle, whatever product that you're marketing at a given point in time, you can add that as an attribute to your dimension table. If you want to use a clustering algorithm to naturally cluster a group of customers, a group of records in a dimension table together, because they're closely related, and use that that grouping, for your reporting in Power BI, you can do that. There are a lot of use cases that are super powerful if you want to apply a custom machine learning model or AI to your data. And then another thing, and I highlight this in the book, is right now, in order to use Microsoft Cognitive Services, you need to be on premium capacity. Well, if you leverage R or Python, well, not, let me take that back. If you leverage Python, R is, I haven't been able to do it with R, but with Python, you can call Microsoft Cognitive Services and use one of those models on your data as you bring it into ingestion without having to be on premium capacity. I mean, not premium capacity. So that's a big feature that you get if you're able to leverage Python, and that is leverage tools that normally are only available if you're on premium capacity. So that's that. And then we're going to do another example real quick. And it's that same thing that we did with Python, you can also do with R. So I don't think we need to go there. So we're going to just do one real quick example to close things out with. So let me zoom out of this, and we'll go over a very simple data visualization. Again, we're going to do more complex visualizations in the next talk. But in this visualization that we're looking at right now, super simple visualization, and that is, we got this, let me minimize this again. We have a situation, we have this plot chart, very, 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 very simple plot chart. And this is the average weight by height for American women. And I don't know if I'm creating enemies by putting this out there, but these are, this is a data set that I got from an R package. And one of the nice things that you can do with R is you can easily add a regression line to your plot. And these regression lines are way more sophisticated than the out-of-the-box regression line that you can add if you're using Microsoft Excel or any other visualization tool. Those are very basic regression lines. You can get very specific if you're a statistician to the type of algorithm that you want to use when you create your regression line. So with that being said, in this very simple example, when you're creating an R visual in Power BI, you remember earlier we defined a IDE that we want to use for both Python and R. And when we define an IDE in R, we chose to use R Studio. So what happens is when you create a visualization, you pass in our visualization, you select the R over here. You select R and the options of visuals that you have available to you, and then you pass to it the data points that you want to use in your visualization. Once you do that, you drag that over to your canvas like you do with any other visual. And one of the nice things that happens is that if you click on that particular visual, and if I think I may need to click this right here, you'll see that this script editor appears. And right here, this is the code that I needed in order to create that visual. Now, again, just like with that IDE that we use for Python to bring in data into the Power BI data model, that is not an ideal place where you're going to do your development. You want to do it in a real IDE. And what Microsoft did was they said, instead of trying to develop a full-fledged R IDE inside Power BI, we're going to let you use your IDE of choice. And we defined that earlier when we configure R for Power BI. And that IDE that we chose to use was R Studio. So when you want to do your development, what you do is you make sure you pass the data that you want to use for your R visual, and then you click this 45-degree arrow that's in the upper corner of the IDE, and you see that over here on the right, once you click on that, it will take the data set that you pass to the R visual plus any code that you had in the IDE, and it will open it up in R Studio. So let's zoom out, and you'll see over here, we have that data set I just mentioned, where we have this data set that was passed in Power BI. You see that in line 2. And because what it did was it took that data set, saved it to disk, and it put it it allows you to read that into this R session that you have using this read.csv function in Power BI. So now you can take that data set, and it's in the same format that is in Power BI, and you can write code to create that data set. So you go through, you create the code needed to generate the given visual that you want, and then you can test that out over here in RStudio. And then once you see that it's performing correctly, next thing you need to do is just copy and paste that code back into the into the RIDE that's in Power BI. So you want to copy the code all the way up to row 9. If you copy that code beneath the point where it says, and I can zoom that in for you, beneath the point where it says, let's zoom, okay, yeah, beneath the point where it says paste or type your script code here, you want to copy all the code beneath that point. And then go back to Power BI and paste that code in this particular IDE. And again, at this point, you don't want to erase lines 1 through 6 over in this section. Let's highlight that so you can see a little bit better. We don't want to repaste the code in rows 1 through 6. We want to keep that there, but we want to paste that code that we created and that we tested in RStudio beneath line 6. And if it was functional in RStudio, it would be functional here. Why? Because we're use a data set that's shaped that same way that was passed to this R visual. That same data that was passed to this R visual was saved to disk, and we use that data set to create that visual in RStudio. So once we get it functional there, we copy and paste the code here. Now we have an R visual that we can use inside Power BI. Now there's one thing that I want to show you, and this is the last thing that I want to show tonight, and that is in RStudio. This is like the default setup of RStudio, and data scientists tend to not to want to work in RStudios laid out in this fashion, because you got a lot of real estate that's being used by RStudio that's not that valuable. That'd be more valuable if you use the real estate for other purposes. And the two things that you really need to be using a lot of is real estate for your script and real estate for your console. Your console is where you do all your interactive programming. So I know we're zoomed out, so for the purpose of this, it's okay to be zoomed out. If you want to change your appearance of your RStudio IDE, one of the things you need to do is go to Tools and then Global Options. And once you go there, you'll see this particular pane pop up. And in this pane, just real quickly, one of the things you want to change out is the appearance. And a lot of people, they like to black out their particular IDEs. And I'm moving around a little too much. And the IDE, the color that I like to use is Tomorrow Night. So if we scroll down, Tomorrow Night is like a darker background that I find appealing. You can choose wherever you want. You see there's a lot of options here. And then once you click on apply, you'll see that our IDE has now been blacked out. So we zoom out, you see now we have a blacked out IDE. And to me, I like a blacked out IDE because it's easy on the eyes. If you're like me, looking at the computer screen all day, looking at a screen with a black background, it's easy on the eyes. So that's one thing. The second thing that typical data scientists would do is that on the left, they have the screen set up for write the script, and on the right, they have their console. Their interactive console display. And to have it set up that way, which it is right now, if you just want both of those, if it's not configured like this now, like it is now, you can go over to Tools and go to the same location that we were at before, Global Options. And then if we go to Pane Layout, and let me zoom in on that. We go into Pane Layout, you'll see that we have the source, which is the script, the place where we have our script editor and the console positioned at the top. You can't change this. If you wanted to change this to where have something else other than the source show up here, you can just select it in this drop down box, and it will display the pane that you want in that location. But most of your data scientists, they will have the source and the console prominently displayed at the top. So that's the first thing you do. And once you have it set up in that fashion, I hit apply to close that out, and then hit okay, I guess. And then if now that I have it positioned that way, you'll see these toggle buttons up here. I can press that, and it'll give all the real estate on the left-hand side to my script editor. That becomes very advantageous when you have a situation where you have a lot of code. You have a long script. And then if I want to do the same thing over here and have the right side, this is display my console, I can just press that toggle button and then now have a situation that's conducive for reporting. I mean, not for reporting, but for data analytics. And that is, I have all the real estate I need for my script on the dedicated on the left, and then I have all the real estate on the right dedicated to my interactive console. So, and then the last thing is that when you want to run code in Power BI, in RStudio, you just want to run a single line of code. You just put the cursor any place on that line and type, hold Control and then Enter. That will send the code that's in your script editor to the console. So you see that this particular line right here, this where we're reading in the file that's saved on disk to the dataset variable, you'll see that line of code was sent to the console here and executed. So you'll see that line of code was sent to your console, then executed. That's if you want to run a single line of code. And then you want to run multiple line of codes at once. You can do that by highlighting the code block that you want to execute and do the same keystrokes of Control Enter. Again, that will send the highlighted code from the script to your console, and it will execute that code. And then if you want to, let's see over here. I normally use a source function, but there's a function that you want to go through the menu. And I never use the menu on this, but there's a function that if you want to execute this whole script, all you need to do is use a source function, SOURCE, and pass to that the file path of the script that you want to execute, and it would execute that entire script. So with that being said, that's the end of the presentation. Again, this is the basic setup. And I think that this basic setup, to go over this, was super important in that I went over some of the roadblocks that was kind of confusing to me. And in the next talk, I will focus on some use cases that I think make, the addition of R and Python in Power BI a useful feature. So with that being said, are there any questions, Adriano? Yeah, so let's okay. Let me close out of this and yeah.
You wanna change your camera, or you wanna keep on that?
My camera is showing on my end.
No, but it's not displaying here.
Yeah, that's what I'm figuring out, because it's showing, and I have the camera option enabled in Teams on my end, so that's why I'm maybe if I need to stop sharing.
Oh yeah, no, it was me. But yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Great. So yeah. It will change in just a minute here. All right, let me take a look through here. So folks, remember, use the live chat to enter your questions. Better said, Ryan has covered here in detail the setup part, principally the gotcha parts. In addition to the best approach to not only install but also maintain and continue with the code. And let us know there what you have in mind. And then he followed up with some examples there. So let us know what is your question here on the live chat. I don't have a question right now. I have Lidon saying, outstanding. Thank you all for sharing. All right.
I think it's LaDon. Thanks. I appreciate that.
Ledon, right?
Mhm.
That's what he said. All right. I don't see a question right now. I know there's a bit of a lag, so we'll just talk here for a second. For me, it was interesting that talking about the highlighting the the catches, whether it is the installing just a single version of the app, and I know very well about the versioning, making sure you are matching not only for Python but also the other libraries, the same as R. And
Yeah, and yeah, so so I know that today what we covered was not the SESI aspect of it, and a lot of people when they think of R and Python, they think of some fancy data science algorithm that they can develop using TensorFlow, using scikit-learn, or using one of the care package in R or whatever, and when they think of R, they think of the data visualizations that you can create. Before you get to that point, you need to make sure that your environment is configured correctly, and I know that that can be a pain point that many people have that will prevent them from even wanting to pursue this integration. Again, there's some other external tools you can use like Tablet Editor or Desk Studio. Those are pretty much straightforward. They plug and play. But with the R and Python, a lot of instances it's not that straightforward. So with that being said, the purpose of this one was to tell you, okay, how do I set up my environment? And based off of the experience that Ryan has, what are the recommended way to set up? And one of the tools I don't hear a lot about, but that data science virtual machine, if you're doing advanced analytics, I'd rather use that, than to use my own personal PC. I'm going to step back a little bit and give you a little bit of information about that data science virtual machine. It is a virtual machine that's already pre-configured with most of the tools that you need for some serious data science type of work. That includes a version of SQL Server that is pre-installed, that comes pre-equipped with SQL Server Machine Learning Services. Ryan, what is SQL Server Machine Learning Services? SQL Server Machine Learning Services enables you to do data science inside a database. So it comes with R and Python built inside a database, and also comes built with a special version of R and a special version of Python that allows you to work with big data sets that's too big to work with in memory. So that setup, even though you may think it's trivial, it's not. I ran into issues with that. That comes pre-installed with that. It comes pre-installed with Anaconda. And all the tools like the Jupyter Notebook, the Jupyter Lab, all those tools that come with Anaconda. A lot of times I've ran into, you think that's a simple setup, but sometimes it's not as trivial as you think it will be. In addition to that, it comes with a Spark cluster. I think a Docker container. It comes with a lot of features that if you were to create that machine your own, it'll take you forever and a day to do it. But with Azure, you can just go to the Azure portal, type in DSM, and the one I use is the Windows data science virtual machine based off of Windows Server 2019, and all that is built up. If I do what I'm likely to do after working in it for a while and mess things up and break it, okay, all I need to do is delete that and then spin up a new one, and that's not a trivial thing to do. So I highly recommend. That's why I work out of that when I do any type of development with Python and R. And some of the issues that they say that you get when you work outside of that environment, like I said earlier, I don't have those issues. Like one of the examples is working with Anaconda. The issues that you will have when you do it on your own personal machine, I don't have that issue when I work out of the data science virtual machine.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's a lot easier, as you said there. Prince, I'll definitely attest for the installation process there.
Yeah.
Because I have installed those tools one by one, so I know.
That's why you don't have any hair. I knew it. That's why you're bald. This is not by design. We both Adriano and us, we wish we had a head full of hair, but but it's like all this. And if you use a data science virtual machine, you will not become hairless. You would keep all the hair that you have in your head, but if you do not use it, you may end up like me, and that is a man without any hair.
All right, man. Yeah, I don't see any question here. All right, folks. So what we'd like to do is bring it to an end. It was very awesome introduction here about the setup for Power BI as well as R and Python, along with a couple examples, etc. So, what are your words there as we bring to a closure here, Ryan?
That's it. I think I, articulate anything. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, you have questions afterwards. You can Ryan Wade. Put in Ryan Wade, Indianapolis. I'm pretty sure you see a African American with a bald head. That's me. We can connect there, or you can connect to me. Through Adriano, and I look forward to communicating with you that way, and also maybe seeing you in a session as an attendee or as a presenter at the Power BI Fest is coming up later in the month in November.
Yes, folks, remember that register powerbifest.com. We have right now, as I was saying, actually like over 50 presenters. As you can see, Ryan here, soon to be representing the top quality speakers that we bring it in. And they are from, in other words, the MVPs, the well-known speakers that you know out there, along with Microsoft employees and community evangelists and all that. So, folks, just what he has Lidon, I believe you mentioned the name, and he says, thank you all for sharing.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, your frustration. I'm going through the stage now, so he's also coming through the pain.
Yeah, as you know, nothing. I mean, one of the things that, and this is a side note, I'm not going to be long-winded with this, but what you thought about when, Adriano, when Microsoft said that early on, said it was easy, it was Microsoft Excel like. And I felt like the dumbest guy in the world because I said, this programming language is not easy at all. This expression language is not easy. The concept of row context and filter context and it's a different way of thinking. So, and then I read a book by the Italians, Definitive Guide to DAX, and there was a couple chapters that I'll read. I'm like, I don't get it. And I had to reread, and then after rereading it a gazillion times, I finally get it. So with that being said, it's not trivial. And it's a lot of things like that about Power BI or just data analytics in general. I know, Adriano, you're tackling Spark right now on Databricks and Synapse. If you got to have grit in this, a lot of stuff you're going to get encountered with some issues when you're trying to learn Synapse or one of these tools, Power BI. Know that when you hit a roadblock, that you're not abnormal. That everybody before you hit those roadblocks, and you have the grit to see that through. You can become amazing in Power BI. You can become amazing in Synapse. And Databricks, or whatever tool you want to use in the Microsoft data platform.
Absolutely, Ryan. And, that's the journey there. And folks, remember also to join the user group, the South Florida Power BI. Share your questions. If you have questions here as we bring to the end of this presentation and you didn't write on the live chat, just drop in the comment section. We'll follow up here with Ryan to get you an answer. All right. And yes, also thank you, Bharat. Hope you all enjoyed that as well. All right.
I think it. I
Any
appreciate
last
everybody for
words
attending.
there, Ryan?
No, that's. I think I said everything. I think I said a mouthful already. So I appreciate you attending, and I look to seeing you all outside in the community.
Very well. See you all. And folks, remember, join us November 20, Power BI Fest 2021. And check us out on meetup.com, South Florida Power BI. Just check also in the comment section. We have a link for that. And as well as Ryan's contact information is also in the comment section. All right. All right, folks. See you all. Have a great night there, everybody.
Bye.
And we have Cyber Wilson saying our server part of SQL Server or separate product. What about in Azure VM?
Okay, so with our server is Microsoft is getting ready to retire our server. So, but then don't fret because you have similar functionality inside of SQL Server. So you can use that tool I mentioned, SQL Server Machine Learning Services, which is essentially our server baked into SQL Server. You can use that in two different locations. You can use it in on-prem SQL Server, or you can use it in a managed instance of SQL Server in Azure.
All right there. Cyber Wilson, I hope that answer your question there.
Yeah, so with that being said, I wouldn't begin any production on our server right now because Microsoft is getting ready to retire. You can use it in those two in a database I mentioned earlier, or if you're doing some big R development that you don't want to do inside of a database. Remember, you also have Synapse as an option. You have Databricks as an option as well, and also Azure Machine Learning Services. So you got 4 different options in Azure. You got Azure Managed SQL Instance inside of the database using SQL Server Machine Learning Services. You can use R in Databricks. You can use R in Azure Machine Learning Services, and you can use R in Azure Synapse.
All right. So thank you very much there. And everybody, see you out there. Have a great night and look forward to see you all again.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. All right, Ryan.
Okay, so